I'm Paul Irving, Product Development Manager for BPD Zenith. I'm going to show you the product today and how it works. But before we do that, I'm just going to talk to you about what you need to have in place before we can start measuring the asset's health. The first thing you need is an asset, something that you want to measure the health of. This could be a piece of equipment, or it could be a physical location like a room. And in our example, we're going to use a room. The sensors are the next part. They can be used to measure things like humidity, temperature, CO2 levels and light intensity in our example, but we've also got examples in place of valves, open and closing times, flow rates. We have fans with vibrations, so anything with a motor that you want to measure vibration of. And we also have train doors, open and closing times as well. So there's many things that you can measure. We're just going to look at the room one today. The next thing that you need is the network infrastructure in place. So the IoT devices, the sensors, they can connect to a gateway, such as an IA Connect's Mobius Flow gateway, or they can connect to a third-party piece of software, such as, in this example, Kepware, which is a building management system that then pushes the information, the messages out to the IBM Watson IoT connection service. BPD then pull this information from the Watson IoT platform and push it into the LoveYourAsset system so that it can be used and stored against different assets. We can regulate the information that's coming through, and we can also split it out in case there's one device or sensor that's measuring multiple data points for the same asset that need to go into different asset measurement points. We can provide you with the API credentials to connect this to your gateway or third-party system. And everything goes over a secure channel. I am getting slightly ahead of myself, so let me jump back to this slide. Once you've purchased your subscription to LoveYourAsset, you'll receive an email with login details for your new LoveYourAsset system. Once you log in, you'll see a system like this, where you'll be able to add in your new assets or upload them if there's lots. You'll be able to name your asset, give it a description. We can put in some more information as well by clicking on this button. We can add an image for that as well, and also an asset group, which you'll be setting up in a different application. You can delete assets and add in new ones, and you can go to your sensors page or the asset groups. So first we need to set up some sensors for what we're going to measure. We can measure pressure, flow rate and state, for example, and we can add these into different asset groups. So one asset group might just have pressure on, the other one might have flow, pressure and a state. So these will be assigned to each of the assets, and all these assets will have the same measurement points on there. Go back to assets. We'll be able to give those sensor points a weighting as well. So that'll tell us how the health of this asset is actually made up. Depending on the different values that have come in, we'll have upper and lower boundaries and upper and lower limits. So we'll explain what those mean. Anything within the boundaries would consider 100% health score. Anything between the boundaries and the limits will have a sliding scale of a percentage down the way, all the way to a 0% health score. And anything outside of the limits would be considered completely unhealthy, 0 health score. I'll explain this a bit further if I switch to our room example. So here, for example, we have the first dashboard that you see for LoveYourAsset. You can have GPS locations set up for your assets, and that gives an overview of how the asset's overall health in that one group is looking. So you'll have different cards along the top here for each of the different asset groups that you've set up. because these both belong to the same group, so we're measuring rooms, they'll show up in one card, and we'll see an overall health score as well as where they're located and the individual assets. Clicking on an asset gives you a closer view of how this works. We have an overall health score of 61% here, and that's made up of the different readings that are coming in from our sensors. Each of the sensors has a weighting, 20 or 30% in this case. And we can see the readings for the individual meters along the bottom. They make an overall health score which is changing. Clicking on the meter reading tab will also show us all the meters that are against this asset. Not all of these meters are used at the moment to contribute to the health score. For example, the colour and pressure are not used. If we look at the temperature example, we'll be able to see how the readings have changed, whether they fell between the boundaries or the upper and lower limits, and what happens based on those limits. You can change the meter reading history to month, day, week or year and show the last 1,000 readings that have come in. When we click on an asset, we can also subscribe to the health of that individual asset by going to notifications and configuring our subscription to that. We can get them from emails or SMS, and we can configure it to go when the asset's health is below certain levels. So we have ours set up as acceptable, unhealthy and healthy. We can have it so that it only notifies you when it's gone into the unhealthy territory, or we can have it notify you when it goes into the acceptable territory. And you can do that on an asset by asset basis, or you can do it on a group of assets. We'll also be able to provide reports regularly sent out to email addresses of the overall health of the assets in any particular group. And we may also want to integrate with your third-party system. So if you have another Maximo system, for example, or any system that can receive API calls to create jobs for people to go and look and inspect these assets, then we could set them up to send out a job to your system so that someone can go and look at this asset. You can view these dashboards on desktop, mobile and tablet as well. It just uses a web browser to log in, so you can access it from anywhere that's got an internet connection, and it'll all be over HTTPS as well, so it's very secure. If you have any more questions, then let us know at the end.